Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews. I am actor, improviser, comedian, sketch comedian, and professional server here in Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the show if you've never been here. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, share the show, ring the bell. We're here for the algorithm, so if you can help in any way, that would be wonderful. We review all sorts of things, movies, TV shows, theme parks, and also UFOs from time to time. And today is one of those days. I've been looking forward to this conversation because it's my old co-host, Rather Be Squidding. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Rather, what's shaking, buddy?
Hey, Lou, not much. Glad to be back on the air with you. Yeah.
Yeah. This feels weirdly familiar. Dude, it's so cool to have you here. I was looking forward to this show because we haven't really spoken much. You were on the show, obviously, last week.
We talked some Avatar, but not a lot of UFOs, right?
We did not. We talked zero UFOs, and we really haven't talked. I mean, we've talked a little bit behind the scenes, sort of, what's happened, how people took this information, how I've reacted versus how you've reacted. There's all sorts of stuff that we could talk about, and also what's happened in the community in the 4 months that we've been gone. It's also been really interesting to see. And I'm curious.
Like a lot has happened, but then nothing has happened, right?
But nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing has happened. But it is funny to see sort of how the community has almost eaten itself in a lot of ways. But let's dive into it. I mean, yeah, like I said, this is like eerily familiar. We've got. Do you still have producer power? Rather?
Oh yeah, I can take you right out if I need to.
Excellent. Okay, so if there's any comments in the house that you see that interests you, if you guys have a question, put it in all caps. Obviously, super chats we see very well as well. So either way, we'll try and read all your questions as best we can. We'll also are going to drop the link for you guys to call in and ask us questions if you have any questions at all about what went down or anything. Doesn't even have to be necessarily about that. We're going to be dropping that link in these the chat, the live chat, and probably after the first hour, we'll do that. So then if you guys want to share a piece of your mind, we're going to give you the opportunity to do so. And I'm sorry, Rather, I didn't even tell you about that. That I was going to open it up.
Bring it on. Let's see if any of your enemies are brave enough to come on the air.
We shall see. Okay, so I guess let's start with a year in review that is UFOs. You and I this time last year were pretty excited about what was going to come, and I was insanely excited about what was going to happen in 2023. Particularly because I was like, we'll have a second round of the NDAA. We'll have hopefully by then we should have had another report that was due on October 31st. That I'm a little surprised that it didn't drop before the new year. But at the same time, it goes to show you that legislation has zero power. Zero. Because technically speaking, I think it's against the law. They've broken a law of some kind, not giving the report before the year ended. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I'm a little bit unclear about that because there is the classified report that they give to Congress, and then there's the unclassified report, right? And I just read something a day or two ago that claimed that the classified report was given to Congress in November. So that might be all they had to do by the actual letter of the law. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have it right in front of me, but it is definitely disappointing that we didn't get that public report that we were all hoping for.
One of my fan favorites and human favorites on the planet, Aaron Desario, with a question says, "How do you feel about pineapple on pizza?" Rather.
Yeah, I love Aaron. Hopefully this doesn't make him hate me, but I love pineapple. I'm all for good Hawaiian pizza.
I love pineapple on pizza, man. I don't know what the disconnect is here with people. You go to some of the finest restaurants on the planet, and the trick is mixing salty with sweet,
Yeah,
and
sweet and
saying,
savory.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a that's an entree. So I don't know. I'm all about it. Aaron DeSaro does love it. Okay, great.
Good, good.
So of course, like with any question, this'll build a wall right between people, and you'll have ardent support on both sides of it. Okay, but yeah, I mean, like, I looked at this year's NDAA, and it seems to me like the only improvement on it is, if we even want to consider an improvement on it, is this protection of whistleblowers. It'll give the ability for whistleblowers to come forward without any punishment or ostracization or demotions or whatever might come their way if they decide to talk about their UFO UAP experience. How do you feel about sort of the new NDAA or the additions to it? And also, there's also this cry from the journalists, the UAP journalists, part of the conversation. It was like, why is no one paying attention to these? How many pages were the UFO section? Maybe 14 at most. I'm trying to think of last year's. It was like around 20 out of a 1,500 page bill. There are a lot of reasons why mainstream journalists are not paying attention to a slightly upgraded version of last year's bill when it comes to UAP. Nothing has changed. Nothing's really new. So why are they surprised that mainstream media hasn't picked it up and gone, "Oh my God, what is this? Look, the government's looking into UFOs." They've already said that story. They said it in
Yeah.
2017. So
Yeah.
why would they? This is not more sensational than that. So why would they pick it up?
Yeah, no, I agree. There's no new evidence here, right? If they pass this law and they find something, I'm sure mainstream media is gonna jump on that and report it, front page news if they actually find something. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not that big of a change from what 2022 was. You mentioned the whistleblower section, which I'm not against it. Like, I think that if there are people with secret knowledge, sure, let's have them come forward and tell Congress. I'm skeptical that is going to be the case. It is kind of interesting though, because it does seem like the people who championed that section, that whistleblower, that language, had people in mind. So if a year from now it goes as I kind of expect it will, which is we're not going to really hear of this being utilized at all. We're not going to hear of any whistleblowers coming out. I feel like, it's only going to make the case of people like Lou Elizondo and Gary Nolan look a lot worse, because they built this up, and something's got to happen for us to not look back and say, why, what was this all about, guys? Right?
Well, there's also no, as far as I could tell, no verbiage in that whistleblower protection that includes what if the whistleblower is spreading false information? Like, what if his testimony is not accurate or knowingly false?
Well, yeah, presumably they want this whistleblower testimony so that they can go dig in and find out where to look and where to find the corroborative evidence.
Right.
Because yeah, without that, it's just another, the guy who wrote Day After Roswell kind of tale, right?
Yeah. We've got two questions here. One I starred from Lex Diaz is the first one. The media lack in coverage of the UAP NDAA remains as is not discussed. Why? I think we just covered that. I think it's because the information that's coming out is not anywhere near as sexy or as compelling as 3 videos with pilots going, "Oh my God, what is that?" And here we are now 6 years later. And
those 3 Navy videos are still all we have.
There's not only are they still all we have, but now that science and the public, the open source has really gone through every single frame of that video. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not a conclusion, but I think it's fair to say 99% sure that it's it could be a very explainable object. It could be something amazing, but here's the 100% concrete fact: we're missing math, we're missing variables. And that's why we asked for Big Phone Home 3. Sorry to cut you off, but that's why we asked for in Big Phone Home 3. We want the whole tape. We want all the angles. We want more clarity on these videos, because budgets are being approved and offices are being assembled and reports are being put together under this guise of, oh my God, look at these 3 videos. And they're not that impressive, at least not with all the variables that we have in front of us.
Yeah, at first glance, they might seem impressive if you accept that all the experts have looked at it and no one could even provide a potential prosaic explanation for them. We know that is now false. There are prosaic explanations that are being, purported as explanations for these videos. And maybe they aren't correct, but they are, potential explanations for them that don't require crazy gravity or physics. And when you kind of take a look at the issue, and what's kind of convinced me in this last 6 months that there isn't any secret evidence that they have locked behind the, government doors, there's no 23-minute video that's going to knock our socks off, is that the people like Lou Elizondo and others who are kind of championing these Navy videos, they continue to relentlessly say that, oh, this is definitive proof of something crazy, physics defying. If they were to just say, hey, maybe there are some explanations for these videos, but check, the stuff that we have behind closed doors are, real and gonna, defy explanation, then, maybe I'd be like kind of interested in that. But with their insistence that these 3 Navy videos are actually non-human intelligence, I kind of read behind the lines in that's the best that they have. They wouldn't be so adamant that these are non-human intelligence if they had better evidence behind the scenes. At least, that's how I kind of read into that issue.
Well, we've discussed so many times about what's the difference between the classified version of the report versus the unclassified version of the report. And especially for a long time, I was in the thought of, well, these senators have to be seeing other things. They have to be seeing better, especially video evidence and cockpit testimony. They have to be. Why would they be writing laws, right? And the more you listen to them, and especially if you go back and listen to them, really listen to them, they're not, it doesn't seem like they're working off of any other knowledge past what we've seen publicly, other than, the location, means, details of the equipment, things like that. But past the videos, they're not mathematicians. They're not going to sit there and go, and neither is their staff, go frame by frame of those videos. They're just going to say, oh my God, that's pretty compelling, and oh, it's also doubled with cockpit, or pilot testimony. And then, but when you really break down that pilot testimony, you've got David Fravor, who says his experience lasted 10 minutes versus his wingman, Alex Dietrich, says she saw it for all of 5 seconds. The time disparity is so large between those 2 stories. And then you compound that with the fact that, man, like, yes, these videos are interesting, but with these missing mathematical omissions, we're not really looking at anything amazing yet.
Well, yeah, and then if you talk about Congress and how they might have thought that there's something abnormal going on here, you have to remember who was briefing Congress during this time, and it's Travis Taylor, who he certainly has PhDs and is a scientist, but you look at the conclusions he draws on Skinwalker Ranch, and you look at some of the books he's written, and he's and maybe there is room for people with wild out there yeehaw ideas. I mean, I'm not against that, but to have them being the people that are filtering the evidence and presenting it to Congress, you can kind of see how some of the Congress people were like, wow, this does appear really weird. This guy Travis Taylor is telling me that these are physics defying things. You're going to take him at his word.
Also, I think that because he's done independent military contracts that he's worked for and with the government, That's probably what they know him for versus Rocket City Rednecks or The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. Like I would almost bet that the staff and the lawmakers themselves really probably don't know much about his TV career.
That's probably not in his
They're
resume that they give to Congress.
I have well, it's definitely not the first thing. His
Yeah.
PhDs and his degrees are the first thing that are going to be thrown on the table. And then maybe at a dinner or something. Like, oh yeah, I did a TV show for looking into strange and unusual things. Well, funny you bring that up. I've been wanting to talk to you about it. And then boom, you get Harry Reid letters and $22 million worth of funding. But anyway, yeah, I of course like a lot of I think the community that was very much entrenched in last year. I would have been very excited with the new updates to the NDAA, but now sort of stepping back and really taking a deep breath and looking at this with a much more analytical and maybe even just to a fault like overcritical minds. Like I've gone the complete opposite of what I was before. Like I'm so bitter about the experience, and so I think that fuels a lot of my animosity toward the bullshit now. Because I look at a lot of this and I feel like a lot of this is just bullshit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about your expectations for 2023. I think that we both had high expectations for 2022 as well. Right? And 2022 took a turn for I think both of us. And
big time.
Yeah, and we thought it was going to be one thing, and it kind of turned out to be another. And
yeah. Well, I guess let's get into that part of it because, like I said, this time last year, even after the first hearing, we were super excited after the first hearing, and we weren't as disappointed as a lot of other people, I think, because we did a pretty good job of managing our expectations as far as what to expect from lawmakers when discussing this topic. Like, you're not going to get the SAPs. They're not going to whip out a body. They're not going to show you the secret footage of the stuff, the really good stuff behind the scenes. Like, we're just not going to get that. We're going to get little scraps, little crumbs that we all sort of fight over and interpret in our own different ways. But at the end of the day, like we're left really with very ambiguous, very dead ends. Dead ends. Where they seem very sexy and appealing at first, but then they end up being nothing. And I think that, obviously the moment that I think things changed for both of us is that interview we had where we asked Elizondo about these, supposed alter egos of his.
Yeah. Right? And I think, the main thing that changed for me in 2022 happened because of that interview. But, a year ago today, I was optimistic. I thought that, hey, this is really cool what's happening. The UFO topic is a serious topic now. We can discuss it seriously. We can criticize it. We can discuss it like adults, and take it to one extreme or the other and be rational about it. And, it seemed like that was the case, right? You had Lou Elizondo publicly being a really nice guy, engaging with people like Stephen Greenstreet and Mick West. And that, kind of stopped towards the end. But, in that interview, when I realized that Lou Elizondo actually was this secret Facebook or sock puppet account and was posting weird, bizarre conspiracy theories and, nasty things to skeptics, made me realize that the conversation hasn't been elevated. Right now, back at the latter half of 2022, it's all woo, right? It's all talking about, bloodlines and weird stuff, and no one's talking about evidence anymore. And it's just, it's not a serious conversation anymore. It's
gotten right so silly. It's a eugenics thing now. Like it's literally like it's got shades of Fourth Reich, like it like only certain bloodlines, certain types of brain waves, certain types of lineages,
Yeah.
are the ones that are going to be selected and chosen to enter this next phase of humanity, and it's bullshit.
Well, yeah, and there
It's
always was that
bullshit.
nasty, nasty underbelly of the UFO community. The David Ikes and those people. And I thought that conversation had changed to whereas we're not talking about that crazy stuff anymore. We're talking about real science and real things. But now we have Gary Nolan as a new champion of the modern disclosure motion, and he's alluding to these very things of bloodlines and being superior to people and being
Right.
connected to the aliens, and it's
Well, it's
not
yeah,
only
like that clip.
I mean, it's not
Go
only
ahead.
comical; it's potentially dangerous, right? There are
Agreed.
impressionable minds who are, susceptible to believing this stuff, and it's concerning.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that come to mind. The first is Marina Seren, which is this little white girl from Spain who has a belief that she slept with a Nazi SS general who was a good Nazi. And he was part of a reptilian race that was part of the good Nazis, trying to get them to do good stuff. It's just like, okay, well, what was the name of the SS general that you had an affair with? I can't remember. Okay, but do you do realize that to be an SS general in the Nazi regime, you weren't a nice person? Like, they didn't just give that job away to the nicest Nazi. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't make what you're saying doesn't, like, it's such a spit in the face to history, and sort of the mistakes that we've made. And it's so weird. But the thing about I can't imagine the UFO community springing the next sort of hate movement. Like, I don't see that coming, no matter how many of them. Like, what is this community? Maybe 10,000 people, like that genuinely pay attention to it, right? Like, and interact with it. It's not like millions and millions and millions of people, because if it was, we would have a lot more clarity on a lot more things than we do today, and we would have a lot more participation on the serious side of the conversation, in especially the last 2 years. But I mean, we've proven that this topic does not want serious conversation. They want hashtags, they want posters, they want t-shirts, they want the things that just make them feel good and believe.
they want their beliefs confirmed. Yeah.
I mean, like, it drives me crazy that a lot of these approved media for the discussion, and it's clear to me. I don't know what you think, but for me, the last year and a half of Elizondo doing podcasts and shows is he was putting out feelers for, okay, who can be trusted, who can carry the narrative of what we want put out there and what we think is impressive and what we think should be leading the conversation. And I think it's clear as day who those people are. And it irks the hell out of me, man, because what they've done is they've basically cut off every legitimate person. Not even, I don't want to call them journalists, because I consider our show part of this. Like, we were in it and then we got kicked out at literally the finish line. Like, we were gonna be in the approved media list, and then we got kicked out at the finish line because we were just too curious. We had to know the answer to the question of faceless bureaucrat, because we'd heard the rumors so many damn times. We had to ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, where is that sensor, Elizondo? The one sensor that will, illuminate the UFOs for all of us. There's, just so many follow-up
Where's the
questions that
23
are
minute
never
video?
asked. Yeah.
Where's the 23-minute video? Where's the triangle coming out of the water that the debris literally launched their entire media campaign with? You know, like the first article from the debrief was about this triangle coming out of the water. You know, it's funny to see. It's so simple to see who it is. Like when you've got someone like Ben Hansen taking Christmas lights over Wisconsin and turning it into legitimate UFOs that gets passed around in the media and the Daily Mail. And we look at this community and we ask ourselves, why isn't anybody taking this serious? Why? Why is it Ross Coulthard going, why isn't the media picked this up? You know, it's like they haven't picked it up, Ross, because it's bullshit. It's not because it's not interesting. It's not because there's not enough information there. It's all bullshit, man. Like, why can't that be one of the choices of why media isn't picking this up? Because when they see Christmas lights over Wisconsin as that's the good evidence that we're putting out there, it's laughable. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm definitely not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Why would I?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they talk about their goal being to reduce the stigma so that people report stuff. But, you know, by going and taking pictures with, you know, alien Nazis and going to these conferences that are full of, you know, LARPers, it makes the whole community look ridiculous, and it increases the stigma, not decreases it. So, you know, their actions are counterproductive to their stated goals, which should make you question if their goals are really should be taken at face value or not. You know, I still don't really. That's the one question I have: is what is the underlying motivation for the whole Elizondo Nolan crew? You know, is it a psyop? Are they true believers? Is it a con game? It kind of seems like those are the three options, and I'm not sure where I totally lie in them. But them telling the truth and being purveyors of truth isn't one of those options, at least as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you. Let me pull up a couple of questions here or things that stood out. Sweet McLeod with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. Stuff did go down in 2022. The grifters got called out. They still grifting, but more people know about their grifts in part thanks to UCR. Well, we truly appreciate it. I hope that the grift is obvious at this point. Like it's to me, it's so easy to see. Question: what if I called your mother a horror? A horror? I think that's okay. Yeah, I mean, like when and here's the thing: since that interview, and since we've quit the show, the amount of conversations I've had with people has been in the people that have reached out to me that have given me similar or even worse sort of character examples of Lou Elizondo, whether it be working with him, going to his house, meeting his family, interacting with him on a much more personal level than I have, but saw what happened to me and said, yeah, that exact same thing happened to us as well. It was too telling. Like it was just too many people, you know, that were like, hey, welcome to the club. You know, like remember that scene in Die Hard where John McClane is just trying to get the attention of Detective, I'm gonna call him Detective Winslow, you know, who is downstairs, and he throws the dude's body and it hits the cop car, and he's like, welcome to the party, asshole. Like that's what I got, like in phone calls from people going like, hey man, we were trying to tell you in a lot of different ways. But you know, but in a way I was fighting that off with just like my belief system. Right. And then in another way, I was fighting that off because I hadn't seen examples of it myself.
Exactly.
And I wanted to give that opportunity to come up naturally, and in a way it did. You know, like when we found out like that those sock puppet accounts, and there's more than one, that stoke division, that stoke anger, that stoke all sorts of things that are the complete opposite and counter narrative of what's pinned on the main
Yeah.
profile of Lou Elizondo. It
Well,
opened up a can of not only just questions, but now, like, what do we morally do, you and I? Like, because at that point, at that moment, this show was popular. Like, on the grand scheme of things, there are streamers doing like streaming, making
yeah,
sandwiches that
popular for
have
the live stream UFO
infinitely,
memes.
like sandwich making streams have way more eyeballs than our show did, right? But I'm saying, in the small pond that is ufology, this show, I felt like it had its base, it had its fans. It was growing every single month. We were growing, and I was sharing those statistics with Rather, and it was exciting to see. And I was hoping to turn it into eventually a business. Like, I'm not hiding that whatsoever. For people to say to me or to anyone that was part of this show, you guys were in it for the money, you're just in it for the fame. Like, we quit our show at the peak of its popularity. We walked away from the money, the $24,000 a year I made off of that show. And a lot of people gave me shit for not sharing that with you. But how honest was I with you about the money that I made and sort of the plan of the show?
Well, yeah, and I told you, straight up that I'm not looking for money. I have my own channel that I'm kind of trying to promote because I do like to have my ideas listened to. I mean, that's kind of the why I'm in it, because it's cool to be able to share your opinions. I'm not in it for the money. And the people who are commenting on Twitter saying, "Oh, why don't you share your money?" Those are the same people who call me a piece of crap whenever I post anything. They're not looking out for my interests.
Right. No, they don't care about your
it's
interests at all. But not
ridiculous.
only that, like, if you do care about co-hosts making money so much, then ask other shows what they pay their co-hosts and their contributors to their shows. And like, shows that make literally 4 times what I was making. 4 times what I was making. If I was making 4 times what I was making, whether Rather would have liked it or not, he would have been getting a percentage of the show, because we agreed to it before the show even blew up, and it never blew up. Like, it never got to as big as I wanted it to get. I wanted it to be insanely successful. We worked really hard to make sure that the show was clean, that it was fun, that it moved and was produced as well as it could be on a service like StreamYard. So to say that we were in it for the money is so stupid. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we would have continued. I was disappointed that we left. There's
well, it wasn't fun anymore. And it's like, what do we talk about? And also at that moment, like, when we were getting, in the last 2 shows, when we were getting bots calling me a traitor and a backstabber, that shit was scary. I'll never walk away from that. Like, I was legitimately concerned at that point.
And I mean, yeah, we haven't really even touched on what was kind of the final straw that broke the show and kind of caused all the big heap brouhaha, which was the text message that Lou Elizondo sent to you. And there's a lot of focus on that text message about you interpreting a comma, and
comma gate. I love what Invisible Night School calls it, which is comma gate.
And it completely misses the point of that message and everything, right? Just rewind a little bit with Faceless Bureaucrat. He was posting, obnoxious stuff and conspiracy theories and stuff that are on the face of it, completely contrary to Elizondo's posted rules or whatever. But behind the scenes, we had rumors of Facebook of Faceless Bureaucrat having these lists and having these private message groups and telling people, "Oh, don't avoid these people, and attack these people for these things," and kind of coordinating those attacks. And even after Lou Elizondo admitted that Faceless Bureaucrat was him, I still wasn't sure if those rumors were true or not. And then we get that you get that email or text message, and eventually it's released. And if you read that message, that is such a manipulative message, and it's such a
well,
why send that? You have a list of names that you demean, defile, saying that they're doing crimes against humanity, and then he goes to the sad story about, oh, you had my dad on, and
also, but
fought in the military.
What? Think of the context of that message, though. It was right after we did our show, because remember, he came into the pre-lobby and I thought he was like, we talked about this after the show. It looked like he was upset, and that's when I texted him. And so when he sent me that list, he was complaining about being frustrated about these guys. He complained in the pre-lobby, and then he complained again in text message.
Well, and in the pre-lobby, I remember he was saying, you wouldn't believe like the stuff that these guys, like, you wouldn't believe what they're up to, what the criminals,
right,
what they're doing,
right, or the crimes that they've committed, right?
Yeah,
and we're gonna get into that actually right now. But the text was sent in sort of a frustration, like, it's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, I'm getting a beer, I'm frustrated. These are the people that are frustrating me, and from that aspect, I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe it's not like, to me, it didn't feel like a list. Like he was like, here's the list of approved people or people that hate me. But yeah, I agree.
Oh, he was totally trying. He was trying to manipulate. If you read past the list and to the thing about his dad in the military,
at this point,
he was. I mean, it's manipulation at its. I wouldn't say at its finest, but at its most obvious.
Well, what I was going to say earlier is, when the people that I talked to, one of them was John Greenwald. And when he listened back to our interview, and then he had the texts and also a voicemail from Elizondo in regards to this entire conversation, he was like, yeah, that was a training tactic. That was a special ops tactic. The question of, is your mom a horror? It was meant for us to go, what? Like it was meant to
shut down the conversation. Yeah,
to shut down the conversation and also get his point across. Which is a lie. In a way, which is a lie. Yeah. And do it in a way, yeah, like you said, it was just insanely manipulative. And then to take, like, the way I took it is, he was trying to get me to fall on the sword of this text message. He wanted me to apologize publicly and fall on and tell everybody, oh, this message of this list, this was my screw up. I messed this up. Lou didn't mean that. Look at the comma. He wanted me to concentrate on the comma. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing in the world to concentrate on. Like, who gives a shit about the comma? Like,
yeah.
Again, like, if the comma is what they say it is, the list is 10 people, not 5.
Well, even if that comma in the felon isn't there, it still doesn't change anything as far as I go. Instead of calling them a felon, they're calling them people who are doing crimes against humanity. I mean, come on.
And these crimes, by the way, were
telling the truth about Elizondo.
Well, that obviously, but I mean, when I talked to some of the people on that list, like, the crimes were like ridiculously stupid. Like, just like, oh, okay, I could kind of understand why you did that. You were desperate, and it's a computer crime, right? But it's not like any sort of, abuse of children or plotting of destruction of some sort of property or murder or something like that. It's very simple, stupid, like, embarrassing more than anything kind of felony. Almost like the lightest of felonies.
And maybe you should clarify who are we even talking about here? Because I wasn't aware that anyone had a felony on this list.
They were talking about Manny 503 in that regard, that he was a felon, and the crime, it's just so stupid. It's such a, like, the way they made it sound, like you said, it was crimes against humanity, and it wasn't. It was like literally something so dumb. That was confessed to being dumb. Like, he feels bad about it, but it follows him everywhere now, and it's used against him. Here's the bottom line: it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a felon. If what he's saying is accurate, what he's done shouldn't really be attached to the truth of it.
Well, that's their only tool in their box is ad hominem attacks.
Right.
Someone will criticize them. They'll try to dig up dirt to try to discredit the person who is telling true and accurate information about them. It's so transparent. I mean, I don't know how people still are behind Elizondo and champion his methods, because it's just so blatantly obvious what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't understand. And this is, thank you, Jamie and Bree. Lou and Squid look amazing. I agree. I think we do look pretty amazing together.
They had a great Golden Globes a couple weeks ago. Or
they
Golden
did.
Probes, I'm sorry.
Golden Probes, yes. It was so damn funny. And guys, by the way, sorry if I've missed any questions. Please put them up again if I've missed them, again in caps. I don't think I don't know. I had it on a different, yeah, if you haven't missed anything. But yeah, man, it's the thing that I find really strange is the reaction post sock puppets, post text message and leaking. And I love how people, this is one part of it that kind of really pisses me off, is how people are like, oh, you weren't blackmailed. Yes, I was asked to do something and said if I don't do it, that they would be writing something in opposition of what I've done. Like they were like, give me an apology or we're going to publicly lambast you.
Well, yeah, the small caveat, you weren't blackmailed. They attempted to blackmail you.
They attempted to blackmail
me. Because the blackmail didn't work on you. It's like someone says, I'm going to release this video of you if you don't do something. And you say, I don't give a crap if you release that video. Go ahead and do it. That's
exactly right. Well, it was the text message. They were like, if you don't apologize, we'll release the text message. I was like, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, just because the blackmail and I said this when it happened, just because the blackmail is shitty, and I gave you the text, the message from Richard Butt blackmailing me on behalf of Lou Elizondo because he had the text message.
Yeah,
like he's the only other person on the planet that had
asking you to do something under threat of releasing something.
Under threat of releasing something. Like, how is that not blackmail? How is that not blackmail? And the
stupid
part
blackmail. Dumb
it's
blackmail,
stupid.
But
it's dumb because I was like, go for it. Like, let people decide whether or not that list is what you say it means.
I am shocked that Lou Elizondo and Richard or Dick Butt thought that would make them look good. Because if that was blackmail to anything, I think like you could blackmail Elizondo about that. Say, I'll release this horrible manipulative message unless you do X, Y, or Z. Because it only makes Lou Elizondo look bad.
Yeah, and then the response to that is, oh well, if it's such dumb blackmail, like I don't even know what their excuse is. It's so stupid. It's like, dude, look at your message. Like it's not even the type of blackmail or that it's stupid blackmail. It's the behavior of it. Like that to think that the way that went down was ask him for a public apology, and if he doesn't give it to us, that we're going to release the text message, and him going to me and telling me, you promised Lou's wife, you promised Lou that you were going to apologize. They want an apology, and if you don't give it, we're going to release the message. And me going, I don't give a fuck. Go for it. Like, I'm sure they were not expecting. Clearly, they were not expecting me to say that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think the subtext of that really, what they're really blackmailing you was, we're going to cut off all access. I mean, I think that was a subtext.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right?
But here's the thing: is even if I'd fallen on that sword, the access was getting cut because the message was released. The message was the idea of it had been put out there. The message, like the text itself, there only two people had it, me and Lou. So, but the knowledge of it is what became known, and sort of got out there, and that's what got to Stephen Greenstreet.
Yeah, I bet you if you would have said, yeah, I completely misread the message, it was completely different than I intended, and I'm going to fire rather, and I'm going to continue on by myself, you would have been in good graces, and that's what they wanted you to do.
Well, they definitely wanted me. They wanted me to get rid of you. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. But like the part that killed me was, the people that I thought, and maybe, not maybe, I'm almost positive this is my fault because I went so hard on everybody that I knew was full of shit, you know.
You may have burned
Um
some bridges.
I definitely burn bridges without a doubt. But as far as I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me, because those bridges are just they're built on toilet paper and fishing string. Like, crossing them, you're gonna fall. So it really didn't matter to me that I had burnt those bridges, because they clearly showed that they were part of the approved media state. And here's the part that kills me is that the way Lou is attacking the community and sort of, if this is a mission, the way it's being run is very much like the way Fidel Castro invaded Cuba. Like, he comes in with a small militia because it got decimated, ended up like 100 people turned into literally 20 people because people got sick, people died on the ship right over to invade Cuba, and then it just became a guerrilla warfare all the way up to Havana. And it was, by the end of it, it was really only like 100 soldiers that they had gathered to take over an entire country. But the first thing they did was they figured out, okay, well, first thing they did is they took everyone's guns away. But then the second thing they did was they approved media. Like, they figured out what news would shill the propaganda and put out the propaganda that they want to be put out there. And then you started getting rid of the dissension and arrest, except obviously nobody's getting arrested. There's no human torture involved in this, but the way that the media, the only people that are allowed to talk to Lou, the only people that have access to Lou, the only people that could get signed skateboards and music video approved, like, they're the only media outlets that are putting out false stories about Christmas lights and unverifiable stories about the Nick Pope. What's the English UFO that they came out with? The no, the Nick Pope story about that the diamond shaped UFO.
Calvin
The Calvin UFO. Like, like, it was so clear that they were upset with my opinion of Calvin, that they were like, we're not supporting Big Phone Home 3. We're not doing a damn thing. We're not going to send out one tweet. We're not going to do. And it was just so easy to see who was really in this conversation to try and legitimately change, like, genuinely put differences aside, opinions aside of one another or research of one another, and go, okay, how do we all come together and in the same voice ask for more tools to get more honesty and clarity from the government on this discussion and a whole lot of other things as well. Like, how do we get together and bring other people into this messaging, make this movement grow? But they can't do that. They can't do it because they can't give opinions on anything. They call themselves 365-day a year activists, but when the actual activism happens, they're dead silent. And so I went hard on that, dude, because to me it was a huge betrayal of friendships and sort of what I thought the mission was.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think that there's a real, people want to keep the mystery alive, and especially if you're making money off of the mystery, right? And if there's people who are challenging the mystery that you're trying to sell, you're not going to like that, right? Because there, and it's, and I support, I support people making money off this, however they can. I'm not against, capitalism or people making money, but it does present a conflict of interest of perpetuating the mystery versus actually searching for the truth. And I think that we were, actually trying to figure out what is at the bottom of some of this stuff.
Right.
And if you start asking too many of those questions, it rubs some people the wrong way.
But you start asking too many of those questions, you lose the access, number one. And then number two, you lose your audience, because your audience wants the mystery, because that's what you've been giving them for
Exactly.
2, 3, 4 years. You've been giving a mystery and disguised in science. Like, that's the
Yeah.
thing
No.
about my show. I never labeled my show a science show, never once. It was always entertainment, always, always. There's no such thing as a science show in ufology. It does not exist. It does not exist. Does not exist, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
I see you
yeah, I
shaking
don't
your
know.
head, but
There's some
the
interesting theoretical
closest,
physics conversations that you could have, but
for sure, absolutely. But those are one-off conversations. Those are not shows dedicated to the discussion of UFOs. I
yeah,
mean, I think
yeah, the topic
Invisible
you
Night
run into a dead
School,
end eventually.
you run into a dead end. Yeah, I mean, Michael ran into the dead end about 7 or 8 months before we did,
Oh,
and
Mataluni.
yeah, God bless him. But yeah, he was like, dude, this is just it's a merry-go-round of just keeping the mystery alive, because the more we can keep the mystery alive, the more obviously it sells better. It's sexier werewolves in trench coats smoking cigarettes. It's sexier to hear about dino beavers. It's sexier to hear that, your race is the chosen one, picked through blood and DNA. like it's way sexier, I guess, to hear those things than to hear, what? I think most people are either interpreting things incorrectly, having a hallucination of some kind, um, or or they're witnessing something that is might actually there, but is not an alien being. There are a lot more prosaic explanations to the things that we see, and again, like, just because I've had an experience doesn't mean that my experience is the line of proof. Like, that's not the standard. My experience should not be held up as a standard of evidence. Because it's not. And that goes for everyone. That goes for Dietrich. That goes for David Fravor. That goes for Linda Moulton Howe and Jimmy Church and everyone. Like, your experience is not the standard. There's a
Yeah.
scientific method for a reason. We have labs and beakers and charts for reasons. Like, stories are not enough. They're not. They never will be.
Well, I mean, once we actually, if we ever get some actual concrete evidence of this stuff, then we can go look at these stories with another set of eyes and say, oh, is this that which we now know of, right? But without that, yeah, they are just stories, and they're essentially useless.
Yeah. We have a couple questions. We start them here, and let me get to it. Hold on one second. Okay, question for Lou. Is there anything Lou has done to you or something you have learned that's very negative, but you haven't released it yet? I mean, I've been as public with it as I could be. There are other things that I've learned from other people that I can't share, but God, I'm dying for it to come out, because I think it would really crumble sort of the statue, the heroic statue that is this story, and that is Lou Elizondo and the whole cabal. Like, I think there's a lot of people with a lot of experiences that are afraid. The number one thing that they're afraid of is losing access. They're like, I want to see how far I can take this Lou Elizondo thing, because he likes me right now. And of course, my response to that always is like, hey, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, you think you're gonna outsmart this guy? You're not. Like, you're not. FYI, it's like, I think, and we'll talk about what we think is happening. There's a couple of theories that I think both you and I could probably spit around as to why all of this shit is going down. And I think that it's become pretty clear to you and me as to what we think's happening. But like, this, this whole idea of this, there's a lot of people that are not being public about what's happened to them when it comes to this guy. I mean, I don't know what to say past blackmail and learning that someone who has a diatribe of, characteristics that are supposed to be honorable and things that people should aspire to, and then you find out that he has multiple accounts that do the complete opposite of what any good human should be. And I don't understand, for that information alone was not enough for the community to go, okay, what the hell is going on with this guy? Like, how is that not enough for you to go, you know what, maybe this year we shouldn't get a skateboard signed by Lou Elizondo? You know, like, why is it okay for him to blackmail people? Why is it okay for him to leave messages for people, demanding things, or lying, just straight up lying to people? Oh God, there are so many things more I wish I could tell you, guys, that didn't happen to me. A couple I might have shared with Rather here, but
well, there's one thing that Lou Elizondo mentioned to both of us in one of these pre-interviews, and maybe you have more context than I do, but I remember Lou Elizondo was telling us about a conspiracy against him orchestrated by Stephen Greer. Do you remember that? Thinking that people were being paid by Stephen Greer to like go against him, like some weird conspiracy there, which
was it? Yes, yeah. I do remember something along those lines. It was Stephen Greer was paying people to be dissension towards Lou Elizondo. I do remember that I can't recall any specific details about it, but yes, I do remember that, him saying that in passing. Like,
he's very
here's the thing:
him casting shades on his distractor or making dubious accusations is kind of what he does, it seems like.
Well, the part that killed me, right, is we played a game called Stick With It, Let's Move On, or Bullshit. And when I gave him the opportunity to call Stephen Greer's false flag narrative bullshit, he went with, it's happened before. You can't say it's bullshit. It's like, but wait, privately, you say it's bullshit. Like, why can't you spout that publicly? Like, you hired his attorney to fight him, essentially, in that narrative. And now we've got another attorney who has been hired to fight a lot of other really nasty shit. But I guess we'll get into that in a little bit.
And just for you, John Greenwald, if you're talking about him saying the Greer conspiracy, he said that to me and Lou in a pre-interview, so it's not on tape anywhere.
Yeah. It's not. This is stuff that he would like sometimes say right before the show started. But when he came in, the last show we did with him, he looked genuinely pissed. He looked so mad, and it was like, I was like concerned. Is it something we did? Like, that's what I like, man, if there's something we did, it's just something we said. Let me explain maybe why we said it, and if we're wrong, let me course correct, and we'll try and course correct. Thank you so much, M. Brian, for the $20 donation. Truly appreciate it. Why in the hell would someone of Zondo's status spend so much time on such petty nonsense? It makes zero sense. What do you think, Rather?
It is so bizarre. He's not a UFO guy. He doesn't care about the UFO community, right? But then he's engaging with it on such a deep level. It is bizarre.
But it's also a petty level, right? Like, because these other sock puppets that he had, it's not like they're getting a bunch of followings. They're literally avenues for him to vent how he really feels.
That, and kind of being able to kind of message and hurdle or arrange your followers without explicitly saying stuff like that. So it is so bizarre, that, and that's the only kind of the one thing that makes me harken back to the whole PSYOP possibility. Is, I wouldn't think of PSYOP at all if it wasn't for Elizondo's own words, saying that I'm an intel guy. I was, hired to, use my intelligence skills on the UFO community. And the tactics that he deploys certainly seem like intelligence tactics, divide and, try to get people pitted against each other, and all these weird kind of creating these in and out groups and having these secret tactics. Like, it seems very manipulative. And maybe that's just using his own intelligence training for his own personal goals. Maybe he really is a true believer and wants to propagate his beliefs. But even that seems like it's a really weird way of going about that, right? And, the third is that he's trying to, manipulate public opinion and, kind of doing a con game on all of us. But even in that scenario, it's such a small community.
Well, here's the thing.
What are you getting from all this effort?
Well, I used to think it was such a small community. Like, it doesn't seem like the money angle of it would be really that viable of a angle to sort of pursue. But then you listen to the testimony of Corey Good and how just one David Icke class on Gaia had made over $1.5 million, and how Gaia's entire stock rose in price the second they figured out, oh, the more bullshit, the more it sells. Okay, yeah, let's get more Ike. Let's get more Corey Good. Let's talk about the Mars bases and the secret space wars and the bases under Antarctica. Let's get Linda Moulton Howe. Let's get Jimmy Church. Let's get all the people under the sun who push this eugenics-ish, diet racism-ish kind of like, one race theory under the guise of alien abductions, and let's do that. And that's exactly what Gaia is. So when I've seen that, I go back and I go, maybe these guys, it's kind of like what Stephen Greenstreet's theory is these guys are just UFO fans. They're believers. They're believers who are working at much higher levels of the government than any of us have ever worked at, obviously. And they bring their cachet, their sort of their egos, their resumes, and their honor to the table when it comes to talking about UFOs. And it's very difficult for anyone, especially initially, to question that authority, that position of authority, because that's what it is. It's a position of authority. And then once the authority's been established and sort of the person's been there for a while and the mist and the laser lights go away, then you start looking at this, at the details of things, and you start to figure out, oh, wait a second, this isn't maybe the authority. This isn't as authoritative as it's posing. I mean, like, what do you think of, like, because when you look at Mellon and Elizondo and Cahill and even Avi Loeb, to a point, like, these guys have been looking at this for a long time, and they've been they say they're not ufologists, but they, especially not with and I'm taking sort of Avi Loeb out of this part of it, but they've all are like students of Kid Green and the sort of Stanford Institute tree of scientists and researchers, and there's I haven't talked about this in so long, so these names are escaping my mind right now. But yeah, I mean, who I'm talking about, like the Hal Puthoffs and these government inside Eric Davis, like, we have materials not made of this earth, and how he can never lie. And clearly, that's just not true. Of course, he has a capability of lying. He's human.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, that's such a weird phrase to use about Eric Davis, right? It seems to be that they're trying to imply that he has some sort of, autism or idiot savantism where he can't, say stuff. And I've talked to Eric Davis. He's a normal guy. He's there's nothing crazy strange about him, and I'm sure that he would lie if need be, or if he wanted to. That's ridiculous. But to your larger point about these people and their beliefs, I mean, it does kind of seem like they all ties into this whole remote viewing kind of Scientology-esque belief system, and it is kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't want to offend the Scientologists or get too down into this rabbit hole. But if you look about how Puthoff,
who cares about the Scientologists? Like, who cares?
Well, yeah, I mean, they might be even more vindictive and persistent than some of these UFO people that you got after you lose. So you want to be a little bit careful. But
yeah, but I mean, I don't.
Yeah. How Puthoff, he was like one of the high level Scientology people, and he, joined the government in the 70s, which is right around when Scientology was doing their Operation Snow White, which I don't know if you're aware of this, but it was the biggest government infiltration of the
Mhm.
IRS ever, right? And they got caught about that, but it seems undoubtedly to me that they're probably putting Scientology people all throughout the government. That's kind of their goal. And
Yeah.
Hal Puthoff at this time, this was right around the time that he rejected his Scientology upbringing and went into the government. Do we really trust that? And maybe this is all
Right.
just kind of these insiders who are almost secret agents on Scientology trying to prop up and espouse those kind of views, because we have the
Well,
whole Gary Nolan and remote viewing. That's kind of where all the roots are.
Well, I think at the core of this, the thing I've truly realized, especially after the last episode of The Basement Office, at the core of this is belief in one form or another. And I think even like personal beliefs bleed into this belief as well. Or even if like, and I'm guilty of this as well, having done this show for 2 or 3 years, and it was a great moment when you and Michael came onto the show, because it was a good buffer against my belief system, into going, oh my God, this is amazing, and you guys going, whoa, 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 let's talk about this, let's dissect it. Isn't that amazing? And then having to sort of backtrack and go, oh, you know what, you guys are right, it's not as amazing as I actually thought. And so, having your own personal beliefs bleed into other things makes bugs on an IR camera look like floating orbs,
Yeah.
or regular rocks that you find out in front of Homestead 2, mysterious and like new, and we've never seen it. It's like, yes, you have. It's not as mysterious as you're making it out. Stop.
And
Just
that,
stop.
well, I mean, it's totally fine to have that opinion and think those things, right? But those aren't the people who should be in charge of the government programs of classifying what UFOs are.
Well, it's okay. Yes, to answer your question, sure, it's okay to believe and think those things, but you can't expect people to look at your experiment as a legitimate scientific endeavor if everyone on the team has a belief system and they all share that belief system.
And they've
You can't.
demonstrated that they can't separate their work from their belief system.
They can't. They cannot. And
And,
it's
but
their
it's,
blind spot.
yeah, I mean, something
Because
that
the thing that
exemplifies.
sucks is sorry, but the thing that sucks is that there, especially when it comes to Brandon Fugel, he's so honest and open and sort of combative of like, what are your questions? What do you got? And then when you really like, that's what I loved what Steven did, is he really went there and he peeled back, okay, what is actually feeding the lore of this ranch? And the fact that you got the room in which, they saw the apparition wrong, and you set up a camera in the wrong room when it actually happened in the kitchen, not in the room that they were in. Like, and you see how they literally built up their own legend around this room that nothing happened in. And you see how their sort of Mormon belief system feeds into their, I guess, skinwalker fever of the ranch. Like, everything's mysterious, everything's a mystery, everything's unprovable, or again, keeping the mystery alive. And I think part of that, I'm just gonna say, I think part of that is a lot of those guys like having a job on that ranch. It pays well, because you're now going on season 4 of Skinwalker Ranch, and I know for sure after season 2, those paychecks go up significantly per episode. I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know they go up. And also having a job year round, walking around on a ranch and playing with toys and digging stuff and looking for, you can still have good intentions in what you're doing, but it's a job. It pays the bills. It puts food on the table, money in the bank, and it keeps people happy and fed. And then you add on top of that a television contract and exposure and popularity, and you can see how on a macro and a micro level, how that could be super enticing, and how that could be a good reason not to want the mystery to die, or to tell the truth, or to ask hard questions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I do think that the Brandon Fugel and the Lou Elizondo, what's going on at Skinwalker and what's going on with Lou Elizondo and the DoD are completely separate
Completely
things,
different.
right?
Agreed.
I
100%.
respect Brandon a lot actually
Yeah.
for he's open to I'm certain we don't agree on a lot of things, but he's open to people who don't agree with him challenging him, which is sure he has his own personal biases, but he's not trying to sell you on secret information that he has,
Yeah.
and he's open to
Right.
criticism, which is
Well, here's the thing
what I would
is,
expect of someone like Lou Elizondo, and it's so disappointing that he doesn't show those qualities.
maybe we can get an honest conversation with him down the road, you and I. Maybe we can bring him in and have an honest conversation, because to me, that episode of The Basement Office completely unveiled the mystery behind the ranch. Like, to me, it made so much sense as to how legends are kept alive and how
Well,
word
yeah,
of mouth really is so inaccurate and so
and how people want
unreliable.
want to, want to prove their
They
own belief
want
system,
it. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
I mean, cool, right? Like we all want to prove our beliefs, and more
Right.
power to Brandon for having the capabilities to attempt that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but but it's a clear blind spot. Like, it's a clear blind spot, and I'm curious to know if he thinks that his scientific endeavor is compromised because of that blind spot. I think, especially now that we know we can't rely on Travis Taylor, I think the people who work on the ranch don't trust Travis Taylor. Like, I think it's time to replace Travis Taylor and maybe even Eric Bard with some legitimate scientists that have no ties. I know Travis Taylor has no ties to the Mormon Church, but that whole team is tied one way or another to the Mormon Church, and I would like to see some scientific minds on the ranch that don't have those belief systems actually help conduct the research on the ranch. I think if you do that, and you do that for a couple of years, and you start to maybe get some anomalies, awesome, great. I think it adds a lot more legitimacy to your claims and your beliefs. But I think if you do it for a few years and you find out, okay, we're not really getting, all of a sudden the orbs disappear, the temperature variants disappear, the portals disappear,
You
the
learn a
thank
lot about the
God,
insect
hopefully,
life on the ranch.
yeah, hopefully the bottle rockets and all that stuff disappears. Like, because we even learned through Green Street's work that triangle area they fascinate on in the show, that's just like a new thing. That's just like, that was never a mysterious area. There's no writings about that area. There's no eyewitness testimony about that area, have anything strange happening. But now all of a sudden television cameras show up, and now that area is super mysterious, and we're firing rockets through it, and oh God, I still think even to this day, that's just like the dumbest experiments that they did last season with those rockets. It was kind of infuriating. But with that said, yeah, I think he is. I wish more researchers and more people with extraordinary claims had the transparency that Brandon Fugel does. He genuinely, if you challenge him, he'll fly you out to the ranch, as long as you're cordial, and you're not being a jerk. And Green Street was able to do it long enough to get on the ranch and come back and do a review of the ranch. And I think it peeled back a lot of the mystery for me, and sort of, but really,
I think it did. It did
I
that.
think highlighted why we didn't get a lot of science on the show.
I think it did all that, but I think it also painted Brandon in a pretty respectable, good light as well.
I agree. Yeah, it's he's not trying to profiteer off it, or become some sort of profit off of it. Like,
Yeah, he might be trying to profit off of it, but yeah, he's not using it to tell us what to believe.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, again, I would love to see the contracts of that show to see really what the numbers are. But I can't imagine history's paying a ton of money per day to film there. Um, yeah. But I know the people who work on the ranch have no investment in the ranch, so everything they make from that show and the whole mystery is all positive for them. They're not paying the mortgage on that ranch as Fugel is, like so. To me, I don't know if the numbers that Fugel makes are paying the bills. I think he's in the hole when it comes to researching that ranch. And if I was his friend, I'd say sell the ranch. Like if I was his real friend, I'd say, dude, you're wasting your time. I think that these guys are your friends. I think there's a mutual respect between everyone, but I also think that the paycheck has given them it, and it's the same thing that happened with Chris Bartel and during the NIDS days. They would find stuff on purpose and report stuff on purpose to keep the job going, to keep the money from the $22 million coming in.
Yeah.
Bartel talked about that all the time. Tell the boss what he wants to hear. And I think a little bit of that is happening here. I don't think it's coming from Dragon, but I don't know about everyone else on that team. I think Dragon is the only genuine person. I think that's why we always get faces of the Dragon going, what the fuck? Like, what? And he's never seen anything except for, I think in season now 2 or 3, he did see some lights above the ranch, but I don't think he would concretely say, yeah, those things were 100% alien or UFOs or, whatever.
Yeah, I have good feelings towards Eric Bard. I feel like he's probably not quite like that. I feel like he's definitely a believer, wants to believe kind of thing, trying to prove his beliefs. But someone like Travis Taylor, or I would see that 100%.
The thing for me that really sort of was a nail in the coffin for me in a lot of ways for Eric Bard is when he brought forward those rocks. And you could see in his face that he is just yearning for approval. The thing that he wants to hear most from Brandon Fugel is, wow, that is mysterious. Have we looked at this? Like, we gotten this under a microscope. What do you think this could mean? Like he wants Brandon to be genuinely concerned and interested in these rocks that he found. And Steven is there and he's just like, yeah, what's special about these? These are rocks, essentially, shiny rocks. That, like clearly those rocks have been there since they've been there. Is it just something that they catalog in their brain and they go, okay, well, maybe one day I'll pick up a couple of these and we'll use this as or it's a moment of inspiration. Like maybe they did genuinely just notice. Maybe Eric Bard did genuinely notice that there was a shine to the rocks that day and he started picking them up and finding crystallized rocks. But that doesn't mean a damn thing, dude. Like in the way he put it forward, like to me, it would just seem like someone seeking approval. And also like wants there to be a mystery behind those rocks as opposed to going, hey, I collected these rocks, could mean something, could mean nothing, I don't know, we got to get it under a microscope.
I have like little
puppy dog eyes like coming to like the boss going, hey, this could be something.
Yeah, I have a little rock pathway outside my house, and I did find some quartz crystals in there a while ago, and it was kind of cool. But I don't think aliens put them there.
Yeah, I don't think it's something you'd go to your boss with and be like, "Look what I found outside my house." Let's see here. Question: what are Elizondo's sock puppet names? So we know for sure one was Faceless Bureaucrat. I know one is Robot Mafia. I'm not sure if that one's still alive. Do you know of any other ones off the top of your head?
I know I've had a couple sent to me as, potential Lou Elizondo sock puppets, and they all seem to fit the mold. But that Faceless Bureaucrat one was the main one. And that seems even more sketchy because, I think it was late 2001, he deleted that. And then as soon as that account kind of went through its period where you can't reclaim it anymore, and that name is recycled back into the pool of names. Someone else took that name and kind of reclaimed it and started posting things kind of as almost as a mock, but not really that offensive to Lil Elizondo. My personal conspiracy theory is that some insider kind of did that to further make it hard for you to go back and read these faceless bureaucrat one tweets.
Yeah, and well, here's the thing I will tell you about the faceless bureaucrat is people archive them and archived every single tweet that was ever sent by faceless.
They didn't archive all of them. I know that for a fact.
Well, almost all of them. Pretty close.
I know there was
right?
one tweet that I haven't found that was, faceless bureaucrat replying to an Anjali thread, kind of giving Anjali some, some credibility. And I haven't been able to find that tweet. But we don't have them all.
We don't have them all, but they've got quite a few. But my point was going to be is that there's a lot better researchers that have looked at these tweets, studied these tweets, and have been able to find other accounts that sound word for word the same, as even spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, phrases that were coming out of faceless bureaucrat and also show up in these other accounts as well. That, and then when you go look at the account, it's got 1 to 2 followers, and it follows all the all the heavy hitters of the conversation, and the only thing it does is just bitch and complain and tell people who to attack and defend at all costs the narrative that is being put out from the top people in the discussion.
And the kind of another weird thing about this is it almost seems like he doesn't need those sock puppet accounts anymore, because kind of the facade of respectability has kind of gone away, right? Like now we have Gary Nolan kind of taking the role of doing what faceless bureaucrat used to do, which is, be asshole to people, and,
Right. Just be a dick. Just straight up being a dick for no reason. It's so weird. Naive Vesta says, rather check your Twitter DM. Stink Floyd says, question for Lou. Do you think James Fox is in it for the honest reasons? After watching his latest film, no. No. The way he pitched that film, the things that he said he had that he doesn't have, the things that he said he's seen that never come to fruition. No, I think he's one of these guys that likes to keep the mystery alive. Like, keeping the mystery alive is a lot more lucrative than telling the truth. What do you think, Rather?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that people like James Fox probably have a fair amount of cognitive dissonance in their minds, right? Because I think that on some degree they are true believers and they believe that they're searching after the true thing. But on the other hand, they are very cagey about who they interact with and, any potential holes that might be poked into their stories. So I think that, they probably have,
if they don't go on the Black Vault, if they don't go on with Stephen Greenstreet in the New York Post, if they don't go on with our friend Jamal Thomas down there in DC, and I would say Zach Seichi, but he doesn't do these kinds of podcasts anymore or these types of interviews. But I mean, those are the folks that I sort of look to. If they ignore them, you look at who you're supporting again. If they only show up again, like on an approved list of podcasts, there's a reason. There's a reason, because the questions that they're getting don't cut to the bone.
Yeah, see how they respond to challenging questions. And if you can't find any challenging questions that have been asked to them, that's telling in and of itself.
Yeah, and I guess we'll touch on this for a second, but I am a little worried about theories of everything, because it's starting to get the people that they're starting to get from the UFO community that are going on there, and they're not. Before, Kurt would let any question or the most upvoted questions go to these people coming onto the show, and now the questions I feel like are getting filtered so that they don't get any more awkward moments like he did with Linda Moulton Howe after asking 2 insanely simple questions about her work. And now I saw the Stephen Greer interview on there, and it was a joke.
Yeah,
it was a joke. It was the most disappointing interview I've seen Kurt Jaimungal do, hands down.
I totally agree. It was how do you have someone like Stephen Greer on and not, I mean, they did kind of challenge him a little bit. I know Kurt would say that, oh, I got flack on both sides, so that shows that I'm doing something right. But I mean, come on, can't you just
No.
tell on the face of things that Greer is not someone that you want to platform and you want to espouse, propagate his message? It's just, and then his latest, big, 8-hour live stream. I was reading the tweets. He's being proud of, having prominent science names on the same screen with people like Dolan, and it's just like,
yeah.
Man, do these serious scientific people know who you're putting them on screen with? Because it really credits them a lot for my mind, and I'm sure anyone else who is familiar with people like Richard Dolan. It's not a good look.
I could tell you it was a little awkward for me because I was invited to the Toganza. I was there for about a half hour, and when I showed up, Ross Coulthart and Rich Giordano were on my panel, and I'm like, oh my god, both these guys, I know for sure Rich Giordano hates my show. He's been very clear on that, but I really don't care the thoughts of a mule. But Ross Coulthart, he's blocked me on Twitter. Like he's he used to be one of our buddies until we started asking his buddies real questions, and now all of a sudden, through no interaction, he's blocked us. So like when I showed up, I was like, man, this is awkward. And I was like telling Kurt behind the scenes, I'm like, hey, just FYI, I don't want you to lose access to these people because these people don't like me and you're putting me on a stream with them, So I'm sure there was a lot of stuff like that happening maybe post show, where he was learning literally on the fly, like who these people are and how they interact with each other. You know what I mean? So, and that's like, I think Kurt's heart is always in the right place, but I think, and I'll just straight up say it, that the Signal being a producer and filtering his questions on his show is a bad choice. It's a bad choice, and I would seriously reconsider. Reconsider, because that Stephen Greer interview was a joke. And I had a question that Kurt was going to ask when he first announced the interview. I put a question up like I did the last time, and it got upvoted, and he told me he was going to ask the question. Then the interview got canceled because I think Greer saw all the questions that were coming in. He knew that those questions were coming. And I think at the perfect time between the cancellation of that episode and the relaunching of that episode, there was like, hey, let me come in here and help you filter out some of these questions so you don't offend Dr. Greer. Because we don't want to offend Dr. Greer. He's a doctor. He's sold us, fake human remains as aliens' bodies and told us that the moon landing, there were more craft there when the astronauts landed. He's crazy. He's crazy.
And he's definitely there for a profit, right? Like he's he's there to number one, right?
He just accessed an enormous audience of really smart people to come look at his shit. Come look at my bullshit. Come do a CE5 with it. I mean, who knows, man? If he gets 10 people out of that audience to get a book or buy merchandise or whatever, go watch him speak. Like, it's a win.
Yeah, now you can say, hey, I was on the same podcast that had Noam Chomsky on, right? Like it's insane the level of guests that Kurt has on, and I feel like having these wackos on really diminishes what he's built for himself. That getting awesome names like Noam Chomsky and other really powerhouses of academia.
Question: Travis Taylor part of the PSYOP and Ancient Aliens, Skinwalker Ranch, all part of a PSYOP?
I'd say no. I think that Travis Taylor is. My personal thoughts are that he's loves sci-fi and wants it all to be true and is having a good time playing in that kind of land of make-believe.
Yeah, boy, this is the largest audience I've had since I quit the show. By the way, guys, we were movies, food, all sorts of fun stuff, TV shows. So come join us. The conversation is still fun, even when we're not talking about UFOs. I hope I didn't miss any questions, but we had, I think, one more in here that I saw. Lou, what are your thoughts on the Liberation Times manipulated by Elizondo group towards a certain narrative? Yes, to be quite frank, yes. I think it's obvious, and I think that the little sort of media blitz that Sean Cahill did propping up Christopher Sharp in the Liberation Times on certain programs, again, the approved media sites, I think yeah, it's so obvious. And the fact that, I mean, just the other day, Liberation Times and Christopher Sharp said Russia shot down a UFO. And have you seen the video of Russia shooting down a UFO? So let me get this straight. Russia, who's getting its ass kicked by the Ukraine, a third, fourth rate army at best, is beating an empire in the Soviet Union. But yet the Soviet Union has a capability of shooting down alien spacecraft. Like that's the stuff that Liberation Times is leading with. Liberation Times was a huge champion of Christmas lights over Wisconsin being UFOs. And then later saying, we're not going to focus on the other parts of it. We're just reporting what we know. It's so convenient. I love how the Calvine, we haven't heard shit about the Calvine UFO photo since they put it out. And apparently we were going to be hearing a lot more about that photo. We haven't heard shit about it. It's gone dead. It was literally just an opportunity to go, look at what we did. Look at what we found. And great work. Awesome.
It was cool. Yeah.
It was cool. It was cool. But now what?
But it wasn't a UFO.
But it wasn't a UFO. And it wasn't alien. And you still haven't produced any goddamn witnesses from it. There's been no actual scientific study on these pictures. It looks like a reflection to a lot of people. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. So no. In short, I don't trust anything they put forward, and everything they put forward should be questioned to the utmost degree. But I guess we've been floating around and talking about it. There's no real order to any of this. And so I guess I wanted to put the opportunity for people to call in and ask us questions. But before I do that, I'm curious to know if, like, what do you think now that it's been 4 months? We had that hell of a year last year with everything that's happened. Like, what are your theories on why, like, or what the motivation to Lou Elizondo is? Why do you know, what are your thoughts? I'm curious.
I mean, so, you know, on one hand, you know, I do want to give Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon and this whole group credit for, I mean, having the military and the government recognize UFOs as, you know, a thing, right? You know, prior to 2017, the government was like, no, we know everything. Now, at least there's these agencies that are studying reports and trying to reduce stigma, get reports of UFOs. And so we can just kind of figure out what's going on in the sky. And I think that that's a great positive thing that's happened since 2017. And I think that Elizondo and Mellon get, you know, 100% credit for that. And if that was their goal, which it seemed like it kind of was in the beginning, then, as Lou Elizondo said famously in a podcast, mission accomplished. They've done it. They've succeeded. We're taking UFOs seriously. Now we just need to wait to see if any of these actually turn out to be alien. But that's not how it went. You know, now they've accomplished that goal, and now their goal seems to be convincing us all that it's non-human intelligence that's up there, despite no evidence for that at all. And so that's where I'm kind of at a loss now. I don't know if that's because they truly believe that and they are trying to evangelize, you know, be evangelical about their kind of UFO religion, or if it is because they want to sell books and go to UFO conferences and be UFO celebrities. Those are my main two theories right now, with a kind of a distant third being maybe this is a weird government psyop. That's kind of how I view the pieces fitting together these days.
Yeah, I've got there's like so many theories, but I feel like the one that is the most it's the most rational is just a bunch of believers high up in our government. It was like the perfect storm. Like the right people in the right places had the same or similar beliefs, and that turned into, over a period of 2 or 3 decades, into what it's manifested itself into now. And I think that's why you see IG complaints that really aren't as significant as they're being put forth. And that's why I also think that you're seeing hiring of attorneys that you wouldn't hire unless you were in some deep shit. And I think that the story and the belief has gotten so big that it's taken on a life of its own, and it's worked its way up all the way to Congress. And it's gotten laws written, it's gotten bills passed, it's gotten offices made, and now the adults in the conversation have come to the table and go, what the hell is going on? How did this happen? And I think, and this is just a theory, but I think Elizondo's in for a world of hurt. I think legally, because and we've said on the show before we even had the falling out with Elizondo, if he's lying to Congress and he's lying to lawmakers, and that's why I'm kind of weary of the provisions in the NDAA about protecting whistleblowers, because if they're lying, does that count liars too, who are putting out false narratives? But if it turns out that his lies have manipulated Congress and has gotten to a point where it's sequestered funds to look into this, I mean, we're possibly, if not millions, maybe billions of dollars into looking into this. He's in trouble. You would think.
Yeah,
I mean, at the same time, I also think that they brought attention to on a congressional level of, and you were talking about this earlier today on the Strange Recon podcast, about a huge hole in our national security system when it comes to drones, and how 3D printers, I didn't even think about the 3D printer aspect of things, but you could 3D print a drone, put a couple engines on it, and no tracking chips, so the FAA and the government can't track these things, and you put some C4, or again, you put anthrax on one of these things and go to Santa Monica Pier, and you've got a huge problem. And that's just one drone.
Yeah,
so bringing attention to that is important. And if this legislation is focusing, and I've also said that if our show, or if our efforts led to legislation that helped us keep us safer and bring attention to a clear problem, then I'm good with that. Like, I'm good. And if Lou Elizondo was the spokesperson to get that done, and they had to do it through this UFO mystery machine, I'm pissed, I'm upset, but at the end of the day, I have to be okay with that. If that is indeed the theory that is even remotely close to true, because I really don't know. I also think a lot of this is exactly what they did with Roswell. With it's alien. It's not a top secret craft that is able to spy on the Russians when they set off nuclear bombs on the other side of the planet. It's not that. It's aliens. So keep talking about that. And I think that's what 2017 was. I think that's what those 3 videos are, is, oh my God, it's aliens, it's aliens, it's aliens. When in actuality, it's just our tech, and it's our way of messaging the rest of the world through, through intelligence gathering systems is like, hey, don't fuck with us anymore. Like, this is ours.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean,
game over. But that's, I mean, that to me takes so many levels of conspiracy and things to happen. Like, I think just the simplest thing, and I think Green Street is right on the money with it. And it's, you know, like, I think it's a story that got out of control real quick. And yeah, they were in it to maybe sell a book, get on 60 Minutes, you know, be a little famous. But I just can't understand why you would hire the same attorney that defended Kyle Rittenhouse. I just can't. It's like, why did O.J. Simpson hire Johnny Cochran? It wasn't because he was innocent, man. It's because he wanted a lawyer that was going to fight every single nuance and word and whatever the
I mean, yeah, we
legal
still don't know.
problems are.
Yeah, we still don't know why he was hired, right? Like,
no,
presumably from the information we have, he was hired to intimidate his detractors, right? Like, that's the only thing that he's been used for.
But then he erased those intimidation tweets, you know, because he threatened John Greenwald halfway through his video to be careful of defamation in a video that hadn't even been done playing yet. Like, that's what this attorney started out with. Since then, he's really shut up. But it's also funny, and if I've noticed, is Elizondo has not said a goddamn thing since this guy's been hired. But also, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but that Jesse Michaels episode that they did on American Alchemist with Elizondo, they pulled the episode.
Yeah.
Why?
I think they put it back up now. They re-edited it and put it back up. I think, yeah.
Well, okay, I got to go check it out. I wonder what's been edited out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if anybody has a versions to compare both episodes. I know I saw Red Panda in
I didn't even watch
chats.
There was some speculation that it was the whole like Blackwater guy. I forget his name, but you know, Thiel kind of associated. It might have not been Elizondo that got that episode pulled.
Yeah. Let's see here. Damjan Mitrevsky with a $4.99 donation. Thank you so much. If your theory to make distraction and just make people talk about this topic is true, then why is nobody talking about this except us idiots? I think 2017, and for the first 3 years after 2017, there was a lot more people from on a national level talking about it. You had Gary Schwartz, you had 60 Minutes, you had the New Yorker, you had some really big publications talking about it, the New York Times, the Washington Post. And so for a hot second, I think you hit the public with something amazing, you know, and so that way, when 5 or 6 years down the road, somebody like the Galileo Project takes a picture of something that looks really crazy, I think chances are it's probably our craft. If I had to take a guess.
Yeah, and I mean, there's I don't know if you noticed this in the Jeremy McGowan 4-point series, but there were some interesting tidbits in there, right? Like, you know, and Jeremy McGowan says that he has the audio tapes to back up everything he has in quotes, and in part of there, you know, he alleges that Sean Cahill told him that David Fravor said that it's all fake.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's coming from Jeremy McGowan. He says he has audio evidence of that. And if that's true, what the hell?
It's true. Right? I'm telling you, it's true. If McGowan put it in quotes, he has audio of it. He has audio of it.
So if Cahill and Elizondo all think that the key eyewitness in the predominant case, the Roswell of today, the Nimitz incident, is fake, what does that mean, right? Like,
right.
And it applies to me that it probably is. Fake. It's exactly what you're saying. It's, you know, our tech, and my guess is that it's hologram tech to make things appear as if they're there. You know, if you see something zipping around like it has no mass, maybe it has no mass. Maybe it's a hologram.
Yeah, or, you know, we've seen, like, again, and we've talked about this so many times, but tech that has been displayed by the United States, and for example, the stealth bomber, they were flying that with purpose over major American cities just to see what would happen to the phone systems and see what people would report. And most of the times it came back as UFO. And guess what? That's exactly what they wanted you to say. That's exactly what they wanted you to say. And so when I see those little drones that can zip and do physics defining movement, when I see that is commercially available, my mind starts to wonder, well, what are the military applications for that kind of tech? And can they make that tech, I don't know, shoot into space? Or can they shoot that tech out of a submarine, and then that apparatus opens, that thing comes out of it, and from a jet fighter plane doing 600 miles an hour at the least, you see it zooming around, and then boom, it takes off, and your plane is not equipped to track something that small. And then it shows up in your cap point. It wouldn't shock me if that technology is ours, and they're playing games with Fravor and Dietrich, and Fravor knew from as soon as he saw it that it was that this was ours. This was ours.
Hey Lou, how do you pronounce this name? For a quick little throwback for you.
Okay, UAP Atoria.
I feel like that's wrong, but I can't pronounce it either.
A
rower. Yeah.
Rower. Oh man.
But anyway, UAP.
We love you.
Holograms might not
New Zealand friend.
Yeah. Holograms might not reflect laser, but atmospheric plasmas and plasmas in the atmosphere, they do actually. At least, I mean, I've never done it myself, but that's or what I've read.
Yeah, you got a lot of plasma transfer lasers over there in your apartment, rather. Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff conveniently falls into a place where it looks mysterious, like a B-2 bomber would look mysterious in the 60s, 70s, and or however long they were flying it, and then 20 years later you see, you're like, oh, that's what I saw. And I think things like Galileo are going to catch some of these what seem like physics, and maybe they are physics defined because they're drones. There's no humans in them, so they are allowed to defy physics in a way, and or at least appear as if they're defying physics, right? Because they're not defying physics technically, because they're capable of doing those movements. But you know what I'm saying? It's
you do something that would kill an occupant.
Yeah, I'm not going to be shocked if in 15, 20 years, the United States reveals a drone that looks like a Tic Tac. That's all I'm saying. Like, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. And the thing that I think I've also sort of the thing that the sort of religious zealots of this conversation always point to is the why hide this, and it even gets to Graham Hancock, and this is sort of goes to like the whole, there's two things that sort of permeate this conversation: this one race blue-eyed avian theory, and then the other one is they hide it because the oil companies, the nefarious oil companies, don't want this technology to come out. And I laugh at that because, God, we've said it a billion times, man. Like, we have the technology. The Department of Energy has the technology that could be mass produced on a global scale that would completely reduce, not destroy, but reduce heavily the dependence on oil from an energy aspect. Like, and that is nuclear energy. Like, if we can put it in our submarines, if we could put it in our aircraft carriers, and I think we're putting it in some of our planes, and just look at the new B-2 Raider. I watched a breakdown of that plane, and they very much hint toward that there might be some sort of nuclear fusion engine in that gives it the ability to stay at a higher atmosphere and run cooler than all of its predecessors. Just wouldn't shock me. And it also could explain engines and technologies like that coming in contact with some of our service members, and Lockheed Martin or the Department of Energy saying, no, you're not going to get into that file because we can't talk about that engine because it's ultra classified. Here, we'll just approve the medical procedure, but you're not getting any answers on it. Like that happened to John McCain. And so that would explain the radiation burns and things that we've seen in pictures, especially when it comes to Cash Landrum. That's one case that I think of, where the physical effects were it was clearly radiation. And I wouldn't shock me if some of these engines and some of these ideas go back decades, because it takes decades to make them, so like the new B-21 Raider, the B-2 Raider, I can't remember what the number is, but the new stealth planes, that's 20-year-old tech. It's 20.
Yeah.
If we're seeing
Yeah, what
it
are they working on now, right?
it's
Yeah.
20-year-old tech. It's old. It's old, man. Like, so that's what I always think about when I see new stuff like that. All right, Rather, you ready to take some questions?
Throw in the link.
All right, I'm gonna throw in the link. See who bites. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, like, share, subscribe. I was gonna pitch this to Rather off air, but while we were waiting for people here, it's so funny. By the way, I'm known as the Extinguisher 986 on Twitch. So if you haven't subscribed there, please go subscribe there.
We're gonna see him in Call of Duty very soon. Here.
Yeah, guys, we're gonna be doing a gaming stream soon. I can't give you an exact date because I got to buy a whole new computer. But we are doing a gaming stream soon. Rather's going to join us. It's going to be a blast. So if you haven't subscribed to the Twitch yet, we're doing live streams of this show, and also we're going to be doing the gaming streams over there as well. So when those start, you're going to want to be subscribed because it's going to be a blast. Got a $4.99 donation from Jordan Mack. We need more Lou and Rather back in our lives. Fresh look, fresh perspective, same old shirts, Rather. Happy to see you guys doing it again. And well, here's what I was going to say. Look, this show's not going back to a full-blown UFO coverage show. That's not happening. But I don't think I would have to twist the arm of a Rather Be Squidding to do this maybe once a month and sort of do a monthly review of what's happening in the community, right? Because we're not dropping UFOs from this channel. It's in the title. It's something we cover, but it's something that I'm not interested in doing every week. But I think maybe, first Tuesday of the month or something like that. I don't know. We'll iron out the details behind the scenes. But what do you think about that, Rather?
Yeah, I love the idea.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, I've been missing all you. Preston, I love you too, man.
Man.
Great to see all these guys here.
You're getting a lot of love. And look, I easily 115 people showed up just for this, So it's clearly you guys want it, and I want to make you guys happy. And I think that our sort of experience, our perspective is valuable going forward, especially when you have things like, I want to combat liberation times. I want to combat that UFO podcast. I want to combat the UFO, Joe Mergias and the neo-Nazis and the scam artists, like Linda Moulton Howe. And the beautiful thing about sort of leaving the show is that there's no longer fear. I no longer have fear of losing access to anybody. So if I think somebody's being a scam artist, I'm going to call him a scam. And here's the thing. This kind of, it didn't get me in trouble, but it made things awkward. About a month ago, there was around Christmas, I think it was Jesse Peak, a MUFON investigator, had put a cryptid tweet out there along the lines of like, man, I didn't know you had to pay now to get people to come do a podcast. And I jumped right on it. I'm like, that's bullshit. In my mind, thinking, oh, this is Linda Moulton Howe, or this is, Stephen Greer, or somebody along those lines. And I was trying to get Jesse to say who it was. And after some back and forth, Alex Garcia, who used to be a producer on this show, chimed in and said, it was me. It was UAPX that asked for that $600 appearance fee. And the explanation was, like it's hard to get, two professors and people who are working in different time zones, all in the
There's a way
same
to say
place.
no without saying no.
And that was my point because I got in trouble a little bit with Jeremy McGowan. We're buddies now, and I gotta call them out on the bullshit because I think it's bullshit that you're asking $600 for an interview, a podcast interview. Like, just simply saying no. If you're too busy, if you guys are too big, or if it's too difficult, or they want more than just one person, then just say no and walk away. Like, nobody asks for money to do an interview on a podcast. Joe Rogan doesn't pay anyone to come do his podcast, and that's the biggest podcast on the planet. And anybody who would ask Joe Rogan for an appearance fee, he'd just say no thanks. I could go get anyone else I want. And I understand time is important, and if it, but in this discussion, I think the moment you put up a $600 appearance fee for a podcast, I think you definitely lost me. I think it's ridiculous. And you lost a whole lot of other people. So, like, the whole point of the story is, like, I don't give a shit. Like, if you're doing something that is nefarious or feels nefarious, I've got no problem calling it out anymore. I guess is my point.
No more tight rope for you, huh, Lou?
Yeah, no more. Like, remember how we would discuss this behind the scenes? Like, there are certain guests that made us feel like we were walking on eggshells. And Elizondo was one of those guests. We always felt like we were, even though he gave us the green light to ask whatever we wanted, we knew in the back of our minds that if we did ask whatever we wanted, we'd never talk to you again, because we saw it happen to Green Street. We saw it happen to Greenwald. We saw it happen to Jamal Thomas. We've seen it happen to Zach Seichi, like, over and 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 over again. If you ask a tough question, he never comes back. And so, that to me is valid, right? No?
I mean, that's kind of part of the manipulation, right? Is, making that fairly obvious, it's not explicit. So, no one can really call him on it totally, right? Because there's, nothing explicit being said there, but it's everyone knew, it's knew the situation, and it's, manipulative.
AOT roar.
There it is. AOT roar.
Oh my gosh. All right. Panda asks, what the plan if turns out Elizondo and company leads to UFO disclosure? It's not. And that's just my theory. Yeah. I hope I'm wrong. Here's the thing is I hope I'm wrong.
I'd be happy to say I was totally wrong, right? Like, I misinterpreted everything, and hell yeah, Elizondo. I would cheer him on. I'm happy to eat crow.
I'd eat crow on this all day. All day.
I mean, I would apologize, would that be, right? Like, yeah.
I'd apologize for everything I ever said. But I don't think it's ever gonna happen. I don't think it's ever gonna happen. Jordan Mack, we need more Lou and Rather back in our lives. Fresh look, fresh perspective, same old shirts. Already read this one. Sorry. Jean-Francois Chalabois, thank you so much for the donation. Thanks, very happy to see you guys together again. It feels good. It feels good to be back with Rather. We got a familiar face that hopped in, that took the invitation. Are you ready to answer some questions from this familiar
He's a good guy.
Huggable face. All right, here we go. Without further ado, Artisan Tony, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm not scared. Come on.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know you're not scared.
I do have the flu, but I'll try to speak clearly as I can. I thought I think I'm probably more misunderstood than anybody on the internet, because the times I interviewed Lou, people were calling me a fanboy and all this stuff, but really I was just trying to I thought maybe I would learn something,
Yeah.
But I always got this feeling that he was doing a job, and I like, it's kind of funny because I do like Lou. Okay. There's something likable about him. I like him. He's a military guy. I had family in the military. there were so many similarities to some people that I knew and I grew up with, and I knew people who were in the intelligence field. You know, it's and I know kind of know how they act or how they operate, and I always thought that Lou was doing a job and he was probably doing it well, but maybe we didn't like what he was doing. You know, uh, I don't know. That's the feeling I always got. In other words, in the end, maybe 5 years from now, we'll find out that what he was doing was decent work or important work, but we didn't like it necessarily at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, in my possibilities, I think that if it does turn out to be a psyop, that he was doing a job, I feel like that's the most, benefit. Like, yeah, I'd get behind Elizondo if that actually was the case, that he was doing a psyop for the greater good. You know, I could get behind that and admit that, hey, you know, you deceived us for the greater good, and I would be okay with that.
Yeah, there's really only two excuses as to do it. Either one, you're telling the truth, right? Or two, yeah, it's a psyop of some sort for something of the greater good. And like I said, if it turned out that our show and our movement, the Big Phone Home, ended up bringing Congress and lawmakers' attention to a very huge problem in our security system, that's awesome. Like, that's a huge win. But it just, I guess I wasn't expecting to, and this is something I always harp on that Mike used to say, I don't want to be made to look like a fool. And I feel like in a lot of ways with this story, I was made to look a fool. I believed it so much that when I found out it wasn't true, it sucked. It sucked hard.
I had this theory back, you know, I think I made you mad at me, Lee, one time when I said I didn't have faith in the government office thing or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and all that time I was thinking the government office isn't going to produce anything because they can't produce anything, right? They're not going to release our own tech to the public, right? So that was kind of what I was thinking back then, and I wasn't trying to be, you know, just obstinate or whatever. Or
yeah,
that was just a thought I had from the beginning.
And I think we put that expectation, like, we never expected from our government for them to come out with the absolute truth about this. But what we wanted, at least from my perspective, what I wanted was a more serious conversation on it. And from our lawmakers, so then that way it would trickle down to our sciences. Because if our lawmakers are talking about it and we have pilots chasing it, and that there's information that's being put on the table that concretely says, we don't know what this is, but there's definitely something there, that would have inspired academia to be like, okay, we really need to look at this. We really need to have conversations. And for me, that's sort of what I was expecting out of the government movement. I wasn't expecting bodies. We never thought for once or asked for those over the top crazy things. As a matter of fact, we made sure that when we made our websites and when we made our marketing materials, that it didn't have pictures of aliens, it didn't have pictures of UFOs. We did that with purpose because we didn't want people to write it off as just, oh, these people are asking for alien bodies. We didn't want our event to happen, God forbid, on the day of a school shooting or something, and our event is clogging Congress with phone lines of show me them aliens. You know, like, we did not want that at all. We wanted it to be a serious discussion, and that's what we genuinely tried to do. And yeah, it kind of just, that's obviously not what happened, but I think at the time I agree with you, man. Like, we weren't gonna get honesty about the technology from our government, but I was just hoping for at least a conversation, around the seriousness of it.
I think at the time, it was very exciting, and everybody was really hoping that their government would do something. And but when I had friends of mine who are like retired Lieutenant Colonel Mike Wright, who's my best friend I grew up with, who said the only way these pilots are talking is if somebody's telling them to talk. Right? You can't just leave the Air Force. He was retired for 15 years, and he was flying commercially at this time when he told me this. This was like 4 years ago, when he was still alive. He's passed away now, but he was saying that that's it's a lifelong thing. You can't just leave the Air Force and then go and whistle blow. You know,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's if
So
you're
are you saying by saying that you're saying that Fravor was told to say these things?
yeah, I think the pilots were
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I mean, especially if you're sort of pitching it as, hey guys, like we have to put this narrative out there so it protects our tech from being discovered by adversaries. So if you could do us the favor in using this exercise and just not lie, but maybe bend the truth a little bit as to what you saw and how it operated. And, you know, you'll get a little bit of attention from it, but after a year or two, you won't have to do anything ever again.
My own brother, he's passed away also. My own brother would not tell me any. He was in the military in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
They did all kinds of crap, right? He would come home on leave. What do y'all got? You know, what are y'all doing, guys? What's up? What's cool? I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you what we're doing. You know, everybody I noticed in the military would say, "There's no way these guys are talking unless they're being told to talk." So that's my perspective. So when I see this, you know, that's the perspective I have on it. So I'm one of the angle that I wanted to talk to Lou about was that angle. Of course, Lou is a master at, you know, I'm not going to say controlling conversations, but
no, he is. He's a master
it's almost
at controlling
like,
conversations.
It's almost, if anybody, you should talk to Alexei and Chris about, we had this plan, right? We had a set of questions. We had everything planned out. We were all going to take 15 minutes each. Lou comes in and
filibusters.
You know, in the green room, we start talking, and everything gets converted to the conversation that Lou wants to have. And I still like Lou. You see, I think
he's very charismatic.
He's very charismatic. He's good at what he does, and I just like guys who are good at what they do. You know, and he might have lied to me. He might have told. I don't care. You know, and to a certain extent, I don't care. Right.
Well, right.
If I think he's doing a job, if I think he's doing the work for our country that he's supposed to be doing, then I give him. That's the break I give him. And people don't understand that. They don't understand, right? I mean, half of my friends are military guys, and they got a job. They got to do it, and they do it well. You know. And in the long run, our country might be safer because of it. You know.
Possible.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I know Aaron has a very different viewpoint. You know, he is not about these potential psyops, and I think he makes a good point.
I don't think it's a psyop. A psyop is something you run against an enemy. I think.
Sure. I guess my point is, think
of it this way. Rather, if for some reason the military thought our tech got exposed, and they needed China to think it was UFOs or whatever, you know, do I care if they're telling me it's UFOs as long as they convince our enemy that it's UFOs? No, I don't care. That's not.
I just don't think you need a. I don't think you need a 3-year campaign. Right? Well, but I just don't.
What's
think
the
you need
collateral damage? We got our feelings hurt.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. and you make it look like a fool. You know, I don't think that's that big of a deal. But I think that, you know, Aaron Desario is right in that it shouldn't be the standard operating procedure of the American government to lie to its citizens, even if those goals
manipulate them.
I guess my kind of point was, if that was the case, I might be upset that there was something like that was orchestrated by the United States government, but I wouldn't hold Lou Elizondo personally accountable. I would view that, you know, Lou was following orders and being a good soldier, and I'd be okay with Lou specifically. I don't know if I'd be okay with the broader notion of there being manipulation of the American public, whether it's a psyop or not, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just more. I think for the thing that's frustrating about it is, it just for me, I think it goes a lot farther if you're just honest about why you're doing these things. Like, I think if the excuse is we got to make up this UFO story to either cover up UFO tech or cover up the fact that we have a huge hole in our security system, I think it's a lot. Things will get done a lot faster if the military is just public and open with Congress and
But
the
they
American
can't
people.
be. I mean, that's the nature of the military. You know, they have.
I agree and I
If we want to be
disagree.
the safest country in the world, we have to accept a certain amount of that.
Well, but I think, but at what cost? Like, I think it's a lot easier to tell the American people, hey, the Navy, the military, we've all gathered together. We found that, hey, this drone creation is a problem. Like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a military conundrum that we're going to have to deal with and that we need funding for. And that we need attention drawn to. I think just eating that embarrassment and getting the funds you need is a lot better than manipulating citizens to get the funding that you need to cover up an embarrassment that you guys clearly have. But then again, I don't know if either one of those things are true. Of course, it's just all
that's
speculation.
kind of an intelligence breakdown, though. If you think about it, you can't admit something like that because then the cat's
There's
out
a little
of the
bit of
bag.
a catch-22.
Yeah,
but
I suppose
it's like during World War II when we discovered, when we broke when what's his name broke the Enigma machine, we couldn't actually admit that we broke the code because at that time until after the war was over, right? You can't tell the enemy.
But here's the thing is that, but the thing is that we hold on to that secret long, like perfect example, and this is where that thinking gets taken advantage of. Look at the JFK files. Like we should know the truth about that. All of it. Like, I mean,
now,
the statute of limitations is over, like, and that's the problem is like the American people didn't know about the cracking of the Enigma machine until 60 years after the war, whatever it was. It's like, why did we take so long to be honest about these things that are clearly, I think not in all cases, but I think in this case, it wouldn't have been that big. It's not like we're giving them the mission of where we're going, where we're dropping the bombs, where our troops are going to be. It's like, hey, American people, here's the problem that we have. Here's the problems that we face in this future warfare of terrorism ever since 9/11. This is something we need funding for. This is something that's a hole in our system. So that way, when something bad does happen, they can just look and say, hey, we told you so. Like, we told you it was a problem. I don't know. I think it's a case by case basis, but I think you're also right, Tony, in that what's the blowback? Like, a couple of people got their feelings hurt and they were manipulated. Like, yeah, like who cares?
We all know
who gives a shit, and that's why
horror,
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I told Rather, it's like, look, if that ends up being I'm with you. I'm with Rather. Like, if it turns out that Lou was doing something that makes me safer as an American and makes you safer and us safer, okay, and if it brought attention to something that is a problem that needs to get fixed, and he was the lead, he was the tip of the spear when it comes to that, and the mission was, hey, you're going to be hated for the rest of your life, and he did it, then yeah, I can't hold that kind of grudge against him. And maybe when the dust settles in 10 years, that's what, and you know what, I'd give him a call and I'd be like, hey man, I didn't like it, but I understand. I totally get it. I wouldn't mind having that conversation today if that was the case. But the stories I've heard, the things I've seen, the actions that I've seen being taken, especially with the hiring of certain people, I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I think this is just a belief system that has run rampant out of control, and now they're in trouble, and now they're playing covered their ass, essentially. I
was a little bit surprised with that whole exchange. I think maybe there was some bleed over from, hey, we're protecting Americans versus, hey, we're fighting Russians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The CIA kind of got blended in with the
yeah. Well, Tony, listen, I gotta let you go because we got one more guest behind.
By the way, I gotta go.
Thanks
for
calling in.
Record by saying I think the universe is full of life, and eventually someday we'll find.
I agree with you, man.
I'm with you. I think we're all agreed on that.
There, right? The mathematical fact is that life is out there. The question is, what's the math? What's the math on them coming here and interacting with us? Like, what is the math on that? I think
if we live long enough as a species,
not as if we live long enough, right?
When y'all come on my show, we're going to talk about Gary Nolan, okay?
Right on.
Love
All
it.
right, Tony. Thanks, man.
All right, see you.
Bye. All right, so up next, and we'll get out of here at 6:30. Is that good with you, rather? So
Yeah.
about 15 minutes. All right,
Sure.
cool. So let's bring on a gentleman whose name is
You haven't
impossible
forgotten
for me
already,
to
have you, Lou?
pronounce. No, it's without further ado, Mr. UAP Aotearoa.
Oh, kia ora from New Zealand, and fantastic effort, Lou. I knew if we kept at it for 6 months, you'd get it in the end.
Eventually, yeah. But I am terrible with pronunciation sometimes of certain names. But man, it's great to see your face after all this time.
Hey.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Well, thanks for having me. Confession, first time I've ever done anything like this, even though the gear is here in front of me. But thanks for having me. And
yeah.
I'm here really to just say it's great to see you guys.
Sound great? Yeah.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay,
you look
good.
great. I think you should do more of these. And yeah, thank you for calling in and being brave and such and the nice compliment you just gave us. I appreciate it.
Hey, the stuff that you guys did in bringing attention to a very important topic, for whatever reason, was really important. And as you can see, I'm a young guy, so I'm new to this field. I've only been doing it for about 55 years. I still have no clue as to who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what's going on, what's not. It is all so confusing and just gets more confusing. The deeper you dig down whichever rabbit hole you pick. But I think on the positive side, the fact that we've learned this week that there are 8 people, one of them, Robert Salas, going to be testifying about UFOs and nuclear sites to Arrow, is some really positive news.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Why
don't you?
I don't trust Robert Salas. I don't think he's a credible witness. I also don't think that any of the things that he's going to say are going to be corroborated by anyone else. How come nobody else from that military unit hasn't come out and sort of backed up his story? I think it's positive in the fact that yes, they're speaking about it. Yes, the conversation's being had, but my fear is that conversation is going to lead to the same place that all of us have hit, which is a brick wall at 90 miles an hour, and they're going to walk away disenfranchised, and then the conversation ends for another 5 decades. That's my fear.
I take your point of view, but I would say if Robert is being backed up by 7 other people that we've not heard from before, maybe one as a result of interviews recently. One's Wood, I think is his surname. I can't remember his Christian name. Okay. I had not heard of him until this week, and his story is aligned with and as compelling as the messages that came out of Maelstrom.
Have you heard the stories yet, or this is just kind of what's being sort of theorized that the story he might be saying?
Mr. Wood's story does not relate to Maelstrom directly in the Salas incident, but it's a different incident on a different site. He was effectively base security.
Okay. Look, I'll reserve my judgment on the other 6 or 7 people that end up testifying, and let's see what happens. But I've met Robert Salas in person, and at my very first and my very last MUFON meeting ever. And when I was asking him questions there in person, I didn't feel very satisfied on the answers that he gave me, particularly why he's so interested in the UFO topic. If where and when he was during this incident, he never saw the craft ever once. He just saw the missile silos shutting down, but I don't think if it's been definitively proven one way or the other that that's impossible to happen. I don't think missile silos shutting down is something that has never happened ever before, except for in the case of Robert Salas.
But that's the case. It's not just the case of
Yeah.
Robert Salas, hence the
Well,
multiple
we'll see.
witnesses.
We'll see.
And given the
I
nature
mean-
of the technology, my
Yeah.
background's tech. Given the nature of the tech that was driving missile silos back in the day, it's all hardwired. They're independent systems. You
No,
can
I
lose
understand
one,
that.
you're
I
not going to lose
understand
the
that.
entire battery.
Yeah,
I understand
I
that.
guess my issue with the Robert Salas thing is what do you think that the investigators are going to learn, right? Like, I don't think that they're going to get any definitive answers with these old cases. I think I'd be very interested to look at these old cases if we actually found something contemporary and we're like, okay, we found something, and now let's see how this applies to these old cases and be able to figure out what's going on. But I think without actually having that solid knowledge of this is what's going on, I don't know that you're going to really gain much from these testimonies. I mean, I don't think it can hurt. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm skeptical that it's going to really move the needle too
Well,
much.
it plays to the legislation. There's a requirement to report back to 45. So
Yeah.
who knows what is going to start coming out, and who knows what investigations were done in relation to the missile silos at the time. And that information is obviously never public, but we'll wait and see. But
Yeah.
Well,
Kate, just while we're here, can I
Yeah,
just give a shout out to
please.
a buddy from across the ditch, Mr. Grant Levac, who does some fantastic work.
Hey.
Love that
Who's
guy.
been helping me. Yeah, there he is. That's his gorgeous face. He's been helping with some FOIA requests here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So just wanted to acknowledge Grant for the work that he does in this field. And thank you, Grant.
Aotearoa.
Hey, careful, or I'll start reading you redfish, bluefish, and you'll go to sleep.
No,
Is that a blast from the past for you?
I'll double down on that statement. I also love Grant Levac. He's definitely one of the most positive people in the field, and he has viciously defended me and this show and everything that I've said and everything that's happened to us, and he is viciously supportive of this show. So I've got nothing to say about that.
He's got a killer sense of humor.
And his cheeks are even rosier in person. And they're just as squeezable. I mean, when he was flying back to Australia, he stopped by LA and bought me breakfast. I mean, he drove 45 minutes to come eat breakfast close to me, bought my breakfast, gave me some presents, and then scooted back off to Australia like a wonderful little sort of like, it was like Christmas almost. It was really cool. But yeah, thank you so much, Grant Levac, for being part of the show and always supporting us. Truly appreciate you. Well, go ahead.
Grant's question there. He was asking about my videos. I put out one a month ago about some interstellar objects. I don't know if you caught that one, but I am still working on my videos. As I get entrenched to this topic, I feel like I need to do more and more research and get things more and more accurate and not go out on limbs. So I'm trying to find stuff that I can actually report on and have some interesting videos. But yeah, stay tuned, Grant. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. Ryan Sprague in the house saying Mario was on my show on Monday, 1977, Ellsworth Air Force Base, close encounter over November 5th missile silo. 5 hours of missing time during the event. Woke up with partner 4 miles away from where they saw the UFO. This is 1977.
And that's a really great show. So go watch that Somewhere in the Skies episode. That's the one that I watched. And hello, Ryan. The FOIA for Five Eyes requests is still ongoing. I'll get back to you.
It's interesting. I always do like stories like that, but here's the thing, right? Like, if Congress really wanted to open the floodgates on this discussion, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Artis and Tony. Like, why are they not releasing these compelling UFO files and data and photos and stories and eyewitness testimony from the 60s, from the 50s, from the 70s, even in some case, probably the 80s, because a lot of these sources and methods and technology, they're all expired. They're all publicly known. Why not concentrate on writing legislation that opens the power to get access to those? Because I think, to me, those would be a lot easier and a lot more, it makes more sense to go after those, because again, you don't want to expose current technology or current personnel. So why not write legislation? That's why I think nobody's taking this seriously because the requests from Arrow, the requests from lawmakers or to Arrow, they're not serious. I mean, to me, talking to Robert Salas about something that happened 5 decades ago, I don't know if it's gonna move the needle as if we got a story like what Ryan's describing here and it happened 2 years ago. Or if
I'd
we're
agree.
going to
If it
get
happened 2 years ago, absolutely.
it would be great if it happened 2 years ago. But if we're going to get a story from 1977, I need about 15 or 20 more just like it. And I need the eyewitness testimonies, and I need them to confess to Congress before I start taking any of this shit seriously on any sort of level ever again. Because as far as I'm concerned, those could be 2 drunk fucking guys who passed out behind their station, and that is more likely than them being taken on a ship somewhere for 4 hours missing time. I think coming up with an alien story to get yourself out of trouble, I think again it's a lie that maybe went too far, but it went so far where you just gotta keep up with the lie now. Like we gotta keep running with it because I don't want to get in trouble. And at this point, who cares? What kind of trouble could you really get into? But I think you understand my point. Like I need.
Hey, I get your point, and I'm not trying to convert you, Lou. I understand your perspective.
Stop trying to convert me, damn it. Stop.
I understand. Look, I told you to go away, rest, come back stronger. You clearly followed that advice, so you just wait.
Yeah.
That's the next piece of advice.
I'm ready. No, I just think, I don't know. Like I want the truth just as badly as you guys, just as badly. I just think I'm not going to get excited when Robert Salas is going to go testify in front of Congress, because guess what? He's testified 15 times. and it's like, it doesn't seem to really catch the attention or the inspiration of the world. And so now we're just expecting to magically walk into a lawmaker's office or testimony sort of situation and convince them. Like, he can't. This is going to sound
you said
mean,
you wanted a dozen. You're going to get 7.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just get 7. But we'll see. Let's see what they say. But I'm saying Robert Salas doesn't tell a story quickly. Takes him hours to get out his story. And it's like, come on, man. Like, these lawmakers, they got to go. They've got places to go. They got things to do. So I don't know. I'm trepid.
I don't think it could hurt too much, but
it's not going to hurt.
I don't know how much we're going to get out of it.
I don't think it's
going
to help
knock on wood,
as much as we hope. But hey, man, if we get 6 new witness testimonies and we, the public, get to hear and see it, awesome. But if this is going to stay behind closed doors, it doesn't move the needle. What's the point?
Well, I don't think it is going to stay behind closed doors because people are starting to talk like the guy that Ryan interviewed, Mr. Wood. So,
From
steps.
Your lips to God's ear. Baby steps. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. I think we've been on the show for 2.5 hours now, so I think we're gonna call it here because this was great. Thank you so much for calling all the way from New Zealand.
Yeah, great discussion.
It's great to see your face and also butcher your name over and over again.
I'll trouble you in the future in the same way I'm troubled you in the past, and you can call me Colin.
That's way easier than
yeah. I still like Aotearoa.
Yeah,
Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud.
Aotearoa. Oh man, yeah. I gotta get out to New Zealand. I love that island country.
You come to New Zealand, I'll buy you breakfast, just like that.
Deal. All right, thank you so much, Colin. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Dude, good show. That felt fun. Hold on, Ryan was saying something here. It's just a story. Lou and Rather are right. However, I think we're seeing a retroactive and perhaps proactive approach by Arrow to look at past cases to see how they can explain current sightings.
Yeah, sure. I mean that makes sense. If we can make patterns, if there are patterns, that's fine. I'm skeptical that they exist, but you don't know until you look.
This is me fighting the urge to be really excited about it. That's what, like, you know, like I always point. I don't always point, but I will point to my 0 days UFO sober because every day I reset on this topic, and every day it always captures my interest. And
yeah, we both want
I
that
hear
bombshell to break.
seven people showing up to the Aero office, but again, this is an Aero office that created a Twitter that hasn't said a damn thing to you. This is an Aero office that was supposed to have a public report by the 31st of October and has not delivered on that. This is an Aero office that has not publicly spoken at all to anyone since its inception, and we're paying for that office.
Good
We're
point.
paying for them to delay and bullshit us and literally drag us around like a dog that doesn't want to go for a walk. It's at this point, people should start getting pissed off, you know, but I guess that's just me. I'm the only one who gets pissed off and kind of demands and wants more. I don't know. I just, like I said, man, I've seen too many things behind the scenes to think that this is. Wait, say that again, brother.
The wheels are turning very slowly, and we'll see where the destination is.
Yeah, I think the wheels are turning in mud. And I think the destination has been the destination we've been sitting at for 70 years.
Could be.
You know, and it's a bummer. But look, this wasn't as hateful as I thought it was going to be toward us. I thought for sure we were going to get a lot more phone calls, and like I thought for sure Milk Fart was going to show up and start going absolutely batshit. We didn't even get to really touch on Chupacabra. I mean, we sort of talked about the eugenics side of things. I was going to discuss a little bit of Chupacabra that other than the pure racism that he displayed, there was other things that he was doing behind the scenes. And I was warning people about Chupacabra for months. And I would just say, heed my warnings. I could be wrong on a lot of these warnings, but
it's usually something.
So far, I feel like I'm batting pretty good on some of these things that I've been saying that are coming, and they happen. I said that the UFO report was going to be late, if not at all, and that's happened. I think when Green Street says that the adults have entered the conversation in Congress, I think the reason why the public report is delayed is because they're putting a kibosh on this, I think. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. Let's say Ryan Sprague. Oh, I will excite you. Look into my eyes. Oh, those beautiful cherub eyes. I'd look into those eyes all day, man. You got to call me, dude.
Good call.
Call me because I've got some stuff to share with you. But anyway, rather, this was fun, dude. So we'll do this once a month. You down with this?
It's like good old times. Yeah.
Good old times. It did feel fun. I did have a good time. And so we'll see what happens in this next month. And if hopefully we'll have a report by next month and we'll talk about it.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. And here's hoping we get some more clarity on this discussion. But as always, we'll see. Rather, you got anything to plug? Anything coming up for you?
But still making videos over on my channel, Rather Be Squidding. So go over there and subscribe if you haven't already, and more will be coming, Grant.
Yeah. More will be coming, Grant. And you guys, thank you so much for coming to hang out. I know this is what you want all the time, but you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. Panda, I see twice a month, please. It's not happening. Not gonna happen, man. Unless, of course, they show up. If they show up, then we'll be doing this show every goddamn day. Like, we'll be doing it every day. But yeah, I don't see that happening. But we'll see. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for coming aboard, hanging out with us. We got a little weird today. Not so much a review. Next week, I'll be doing my review on Call of Duty. So tune in next Tuesday. I think we're going to do the show every Tuesday. I think that's going to be the schedule, the beginning of the schedule every Tuesday. And then again, stay tuned, ring the bell, because we've got gaming streams coming, and I know Rather's going to be getting in on these streams because he's a bit of a gamer
practicing.
too.
Been
I've been
brushing
practicing too. I've been leveling up all of my weapons. Listen to us. This is so stupid. I've been leveling up all my. I think the carpal tunnel's really hit in this left thumb here.
But take it easy, Lou. Don't rush yourself.
Yeah. Well, listen, saving lives in on I don't know what fake country it is in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, but someone's got to do the dirty work, rather.
True that.
All right, you guys, that is all from us. Until next time, have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Peace.